Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. This is the fourth episode of the story, where Naruto Uzumaki has the power of Kyuubi no Kitsune. But what if at age 5 he was given a greater power? Power Naruto, Naru, Hina, harem. Alternate timeline and characters. Rated M for language, violence and straight, les lemons later. To show your support, like and subscribe. Let's get this show going.
August 21st, 7:45 a.m., room 34, outdoor arena. So Kurenai and Kakashi had their third date. How'd it go? Naruto asked, slightly excited. Sure did, Naruto-kun. I had to pry it out of her, but she really likes old Cyclops. Anko said, then smirked. And get this, I still can't believe it, but she told me he stopped reading those itchy paradise books. Anko said, amazed she'd actually said it. Naruto dropped down onto the bench behind him, stunned, but smiling. He must be serious about her then, you know how much he loves Jiraiya's books. Anko nodded, then glanced around briefly and smiled. Hi. But no book can beat live pussy. Naruto nearly giggled. I wouldn't know. Naruto said. Yet. But once you pop Hinata you'll never look at women the same way again. Anko said. Hey, don't talk like that about Hinata-kun. Naruto said firmly and glared at Anko. Anko flinched in submission, she knew she'd messed up. I'm sorry Naruto-kun, you know I love Hinata and didn't mean her any disrespect. I forget my manners sometimes, you know how I am. Anko said softly and looked at the floor. Naruto stood and gave Anko a hug. I forgive you Anko-kun, I know you didn't mean it. I'm kinda touchy about her. They'll be starting soon, so go be a good sensei and wish Hinata-kun and Tenshin good luck. Oh, are they sure about when the attack is going to start? Anko got serious. Hi, everything has been confirmed, but there may be a few traitors helping them, we have some suspects, but nothing we can act on. So keep a sharp eye when you come out for your match against Gaara, he's their linchpin, without him letting out Shikaku they don't have the power to pull this off. If he transforms and smashes the outer wall the bulk of their forces will flood in here and we'll have a hell of a time trying to stop them while protecting the civilians and guests. You know what'll happen if anyone from the other elemental countries is killed. Naruto nodded. Konoha will catch hell from all sides. I'll be ready, don't worry. Nobody takes down Konoha while I'm alive. Anko smiled proudly. That's why I gave you my heart Naruto-kun, and in 2 years you get the rest. Anko said and shooshined away. 8 a.m., outdoor arena. The giant screen on the arena light up with the first fighters' names, which got cheers from the huge crowd of civilians, shinobi, daimos, and all the countries. Bull vs. Nago Admanda in the Leaf Shinobi section of the stands, 4th row, was Chi-Chi smiling happily as Bull walked out to a chorus of cheers, most were from Leaf. Chi-Chi was the loudest by far. Sit down Chichikan, you don't want to distract him. Fuki said from the seat to Chi-Chi's right. Chi-Chi sat down and smiled at Fuki. You're just jealous because my new boyfriend made it to the finals and yours got his balls busted by a girl. Fuki gently pushed Chi-Chi, who giggled. You shouldn't talk. Did you forget how you lost? Fuki said, put her over her crotch and made her best pained face. Chi-Chi pouted and glared. Bitch. Chi-Chi said playfully, she hadn't forgotten. Knock it off you two, they're about to start and I don't want to miss anything. Kiba said and gently elbowed his new girlfriend Fuki. Hi, Kiba-kun. I'm sorry. Fuki said and gave him a quick hug. Akamaru gave a happy bark, he was in Kiba's jacket and got part of the hug. Shino, sitting to Kiba's right, glanced at his teammates and Chi-Chi, and gave a very subtle smirk no one saw beneath his collar. Fubiki was smiling at their antics. Aren't they cute? Fubiki asked quietly. Shino glanced at Fubiki sat his right and gave her a very subtle nod. Arena floor. The moment the match started, Bull clapped his hands in the prayer position, which activated his special stone armor jutsu, but only a very well-trained eye would catch the very subtle change in his appearance. He then took his modified taijutsu stance. A cross between a boxing and wrestling stance, with his left foot forward, his left hand was open, his right in a loose fist. Nego pulled 4 kunai and threw them at Bull, who swatted them away with a swipe or his left. It sounded like steel hitting stone. Nego smiled. Stone armor, I thought so. This is going to be fun. Okay, let's see how good you are at earth jutsu. He said, then flashed through some hand signs. Stone dragon missile. A 30-foot dragon made of earth and rock rose from the ground in front of him and lunged forward to crash down on his opponent with deadly force. Bull smirked. The moment he was out of sight of the rock he quickly flashed through 4 one-handed seals Kakashi had taught him. A moment later the jutsu hit him full force. The moment it hit, Nego smiled. Idiot didn't even dodge it, what a low. His thought was interrupted when his opponent sprang from the ground in front of him, scooped him up and crushed him across his huge chest. Human avalanche. Bull yelled as he jumped 20 feet in the air and then crashed to the ground on top of the rock Nin. The thunderous impact made a 10-foot wide, 3-foot deep crater. The rock Nin beneath him was out cold. Bull got to one knee and checked his pulse on his neck. You might want to call the medics, I broke at least 8 of his ribs. Bull said casually. The proctor appeared at the edge of the crater and nodded. Winner. Bull. Bull raised his hands, turned to find Chi-Chi in the crowd and gave her a smile. Chi-Chi smiled very happily and waved as she almost bounced excitedly in her seat. Fuki looked at her friend with a sly smirk. Are you too? That's personal. Chi-Chi interrupted as she blushed bright red. Fuki giggled and nodded, a big smile on her face. Kiba just smiled. He wasn't going to say anything. He desperately wanted to, but had recently learned there's times when you need to suppress your natural instincts. For him that meant not thinking with his crotch. Ino taught him that lesson the hard way, Itaka Sensei made. Sure, the lesson stuck. On the upside, his mom, and even his big sister Hina, were proud of him for his new self-control. Though he still thought Hina was still a bit of a bitch, she has been a little nicer lately. Room 9, that was impressive. He would have killed me with that move. Ino said seriously. Not that he would have needed it to take you out, pig tits. Sakura said and smiled. But you're right, he would have crushed me with it too. Worse, I don't have your natural padding. Sakura said and patted her B-cups. Ino laughed. Big boobs aren't always great. I was having a private sparring match with Kurenai and made a joke about using her tits as punching bags. Kami, was that a mistake? She tore off my top and did it to mine. I had no idea Kurenai Sensei had such a temper or was so sensitive about having some of the biggest tits in Konoha. So be careful around her, especially if you spar with her. Ino said in painful embarrassment, then saw the look on Sakura's face. You tell anyone what I just told you, Sakura, and I swear on my tits I'll tell the whole village what you keep under that floorboard under your bed. Ino said with a glare that left no doubt she was dead serious. Sakura's eyes got as big as saucers. She paled and nodded. Hi, Inakan. I promise. Ino relaxed and smiled when she saw the next match about to start on the Closetsucut monitor. You have an admirer. Ino said playfully. Sakura turned and looked up at the monitor. It was the other Rock Nin and Rock Lee, who was holding up a cherry blossom. She quickly turned up the sound. Dedicate this match to you, my cherry blossom. Lee exclaimed with his classic big toothy smile. Sakura could hear the groans and laughter come through from the crowd and knew her friends knew he meant her. She sighed. That's sweet, no one has done something like that for me. You two gonna hook up? He's a geek, but has a great body. Ino said with a sly smile. Sakura blushed for a moment. She really was flattered. and he had been there for her every day after her operation and rehab. She pushed it back and turned to Ino. He's no Naruto. But he does have a nice body. I might give him a chance. Sakura said casually. Ino had caught Sakura's reflection in the screen, saw her blush and knew Sakura's reaction just from her subtle body language. She'd known Sakura too long to be fooled by her. She hid her excitement. Sakura might as well have held up a sign saying, "I want to fuck Rock Lee," as far as she was concerned. "If you do let me know and I'll help you get ready, anything for my best friend." "Thanks Ino," Sakura said, then looked at the monitor when it started. She watched Lee immediately open the first chakra gate, was suddenly in front of the Rock Nin where he kicked him high into the air, opened the second and third chakra gates, was suddenly in the air just above the stunned Rock Nin, did a high-speed front flip and hammered the Rock Nin with a heel kick that drove him to the ground with a thunderous crash, and a moment later landed next to the crater her maid. Sakura sat there slack-jawed and bug-eyed. "Spandex boy can open the chakra gates too?" Ino said, stunned. "If he did that while he was fucking you he'd." Ino said as a devious smile crept onto her face, voicing her thoughts. Sakura snapped out of her daze, jumped to her feet and turned to Ino with a hard glare. "Stay away from him Ino, he's mine." Ino's eyebrows shot up, then she smiled deviously. "So he does make you wet?" Ino said and watched amused as Sakura realized what she'd just said. "You can have him, it'd be the best fuck I'd ever have. But my last. I couldn't withstand that kind of power, he'd kill me, but if you opened yours too. Oh Kami, what a ride that'd be, dot." Sakura blushed, then after Ino finished she smiled and hugged her best friend. "Thanks Inakan. I'd like to have Naruto-kun, but nobody stands a chance against Hinata-kun, and there isn't a female in Konoha capable of getting between them, or willing to try. Then there's Anko, she'd kill anyone that even tried. Remember what she told us the week after I got out of the hospital, hi. Even if she marries someone else Naruto will always be first in her heart and her master. After what Naruto did for her I don't blame her. I'd do the same thing. I can't even imagine what she's been through." Ino said solemnly. "I sort of can, Naruto kinda did the same for me in my match. I would have opened all 8 chakra gates and killed myself just to hurt Fubiki. I'd do anything for Naruto-kun Ino. Anything." Sakura said sincerely. Ino just nodded. In the arena Sasuke walked out confidently, watching Neji intently do the same from the other side. He'd trained harder than ever to get ready for this match. His personal pride, as well as that of the remaining Uchiha clan was on the line, but he knew Neji felt the same way. Uchiha vs Hyuga was the ultimate clan matchup in Konoha. He knew the betting would be very heavy on this match, but that didn't concern him. He just wanted to beat Neji and make Chunin. He heard a certain voice cheering over all the others, but didn't react. "I wish she wouldn't do that. I told her we aren't serious yet, one lunch together doesn't mean we're dating. Why are women so difficult?" Sasuke thought and glanced briefly up at Kintsuchi as he reached the center. He waited for the signal and the instant he heard it he activated his Sharingan, leapt back into his intercepting fist taijutsu stance as Neji did the same. Byakugan jumped back into his gentle fist stance. "Let's see what you've got Neji," Sasuke said confidently. Sasuke flashed through a series of hand signs, took a quick breath and blew out a dozen fist-sized fireballs in a row at Neji. Neji didn't even flinch, he dodged every one with apparent ease. "You must do much better than that to defeat me Sasuke," Neji said emotionlessly, then quickly leapt to his right. When a fireball bigger than he was raced at him at twice the speed of the small fireballs and exploded on the wall 30 feet behind him. He gave Sasuke a nod. Sasuke gritted his teeth a moment at missing, then returned the nod. "I'm just getting warmed up," Sasuke thought. Neji reached into the weapon pouches on both legs and pulled out 10 shuriken in each hand, dropped into an attack stance and with blinding speed began throwing them at Sasuke, one at a time, alternating hands. In the stands Hayashi and Hizashi glanced at each other over Hana and Hanabi, both had the same thought. Niji is using divination, 8 trigrams, 64 palms as a distance attack to throw shuriken. That's brilliant. 8-year-old Hanabi was amazed at her cousin's new attack. Hana was stunned as well, she'd also recognized it and watched Sasuke just barely dodge all 20 shuriken. She could tell that several had cut his shirt and pants. She turned to her husband. Hayashikin, was that? Hana asked quietly. Hayashi glanced at her and nodded. Niji has been holding back, Hizashi and I must have a talk with him when this is over. Hayashi said quietly. Hizashi nodded. Hi. Sasuke was on full guard now, even with his Sharingan and speed he barely managed to avoid that attack. He was seriously impressed and knew Niji had to have come up with that himself because he'd never seen that technique before. I wonder what else he'd holding back. Sasuke thought. Damn, that should have disabled him enough for me to finish this. His speed has increased more than I expected. I still have our clan's 2 best techniques he doesn't know I can use, and my other new technique. I just hope I don't have to use it, I can only do it once and it'll drain my chakra. Niji thought. Let us end this now. Niji said, focused his chakra in his hands and charged in at full speed. Damn it, I don't think I can dodge him up close. Sasuke said quickly and dropped into his best intercepting fist stance ADN focus his chakra to increase his speed to maximum, he'd only get one chance. He had to protect his arms, he knew if Niji struck them he was finished, even blocking wasn't an option again the Juken style, he had to avoid Niji's hands at any cost. She watched the match intently, she hadn't told anyone but she thought tall, stoic Hyuga was really cute, he was like her in many ways. She caught a brief smirk out of the corner of her eye and turned to the woman next to her and sighed. We'll talk about it later, okay? She looked down at her daughter and nodded with a smirk. Despite his best efforts his chakra points getting shut down and the strikes to his body were adding up fast. Throwing caution to the wind he moved in closer with a left to the head Niji dodged, but this gave him the brief opening he ducked and spun around baying Niji as fast he could and without even looking as he stood he threw a straight right at the back of Niji's head with everything he had. By pure luck, and unknown to him, his arm was exactly within the Byakugan's only blind spot and connected. Niji felt a sharp pain in the back of his head a moment and flashes of light in his eyes then everything went black. A moment after he felt his punch connect the stunned Sasuke looked at the proctor who declared him the winner. He smiled, raised his right fist and promptly collapsed to his hands and knees from exhaustion. The medics came out, carried Niji out and helped Sasuke leave, he wouldn't let them carry him. Room 34, congratulations team. I'll never hear the end of this. I could tell him he got lucky with that punch, but he'd just argue, I'll let him have his moment. Naruto said and laughed. Room 6, come on Tenshin, I know how you feel about Inakan, but you have to fight her, and you can't hold back. This is as much for Ino as you. You want her to ache Chunin don't you? Hinata asked, her hands on Tenten's shoulders. Tenten whimpered. I don't want to kick her ass. I want it on my face. What about Tamarikan? You don't want to disappoint her do you? You helped her more than Inoikazan and Kurenazan, she loves you as much as she does me, you're her girlfriend because I have Naruto-kun, and until we're married there are certain things I won't do. Hinata said sincerely. You know I love Tamarikan, but Ino is special to me too. I don't care if she's bi, I'll share her with a man. Tenten said, getting a little upset. You know Ino feels the same about you and will fight to win. Hinata said, then saw Tenten nod. If you do your best against Ino, win or lose, I'll. Hinata said, paused as she blushed lightly, then whispered the rest in Tenten's ear. Tenten's eyes got as big as saucers as she blushed red a moment. Do you mean that Hinatakan? Tenten asked, stunned, then saw Hinata nod and smile with a light blush. I'll do my best, I promise. There was a knock at the door. "It's time 10:10. A woman said. "Be right there." 10:10 yelled. "Thank you for the pep talk, Hinata-kun, and for that I'll do my best." 10:10 said, then held up her hands at chest level, palms forward. "Can I, Hinata-kun? For luck." 10:10 asked politely and gave Hinata he best big puppy's look. Hinata smirked then sighed. "They aren't lucky, and I really shouldn't. That one time we were just being silly playing cards, though it did work. Just this once, but at the next party you're gonna be serving girl, and if you complain even once I'll have Naruto-kun hide your weapons and you won't see em for a week unless we get a mission." Hinata said seriously. "Deal." 10:10 chirped happily. She hated being serving girl, but it'd be worth it. Hinata quickly unzipped her jacket and pulled up her shirt and sports bra. Her FF cup breasts flopped out. She let 10:10 feel her up a moment, though she didn't show it. She did like the feeling. 10:10 knew how to use her hands. As soon as 10:10 released her, she quickly tucked them back in, pulled down her shirt and zipped up her coat. "Now go do your best." 10:10 smiled happily, nodded, ran to the door and EAS gone in a moment. Hinata activated her Byakugan and saw 10:10 running down the hall toward the entrance at incredible speed. Wow, she's gotten a lot faster, so that's what she's been doing when she wasn't helping Tamarican. I wonder if she came up with any new jutsu. Hinata said, sat on Tay bench and watched the monitor. A few moments later 10:10 and Ino walked out into the arena. "Arena stands, what are you smiling about, Hana-chan?" Hayashi asked as her turned to his wife, just missing her deactivate her Byakugan. "Oh, I'm just looking forward this match between Hinata-kun's friends. It's so good to see so many strong kunoichi in this year's final exams." Hana said, when Hashi noted and turned back to watch the match about to begin. She smirked subtly. "You're wrong, my precious Hinata, they are lucky. I'm the same way. I think it's time I had the talk with her." Hana thought happily, glad she'd learned to read lips. August 21st, 8:10 a.m., outdoor arena, stands. "Oh dear Kami. What have you done, Ino?" Inoichi said with a big fatherly sigh of exasperation, then turned to Inoiki when she tried to suppress her giggling. His face hardened as he glared at his wife. He could see her hands in this. "Are you two trying to give me a heart attack?" he said with very restrained anger. He wouldn't hit her, publicly or privately, but he had many ways to punish his wife when she got like this. Inoiki looked at her husband, withered under his glare and subconsciously crossed her arms over her breasts. She knew they'd only be safe until they returned home. Then her big girls were in big trouble. "I can." "Okay, maybe I can't explain, Inoichi-kun," Inoiki said in submissive voice, trying to charm him. Though she knew it was useless. "You saw what happened in her prelim match. She wants to be unique. Hotarukan helped Inakan design her new outfit and I gave her some tips. She's worked very hard the last month. She's off that stupid diet and trains very hard every day. Just watch before you decide." Inoichi sighed and looked at his little girl. She wasn't little anymore. He just didn't want to let her go, but her new outfit gave him no choice. She had on custom purple leather kunoichi knee boots with metal shin guards. Instead of her usual skirt she had on what was basically tight, purple micro shorts with a flap in front and back that went halfway down her thighs and just covered her crotch and butt, but not by much. Her top was basically the same, but the back looked like it was either padded or lightly armored, and a front strip directly below and as wide as her neck, down to the strap around the bottom just below her full breasts, was bare. Her cleavage was fully visible almost out to her nipples, which he was thankful were still covered. The final touch was elbow length. Armored, purple leather fingerless gloves. Nearly every boy in attendance was yelling and well, acting like boys do around a sexy girl. He suppressed his fatherly urge to start hurting them for looking at his princess like a piece of meat or some whore in the red light district. He knew exactly how far Ino had gone sexually with boys, and a certain girl, and though she was still technically a virgin, as a doctor would tell him if she was checked, she wasn't as pure as he would have preferred, but he trusted her judgment. "Begin," the proctor said and leapt back. Tenten was amazed at Ino's new outfit. It was taking all her willpower to not submit before the match even started. Ino looked stunning. Tenten leapt up and back. As she did, she pulled a handful of her custom mini kunai from both weapon pouches and threw all 10 at Ino in 2 waves of 5. Ino used her forearm and shin guards to block all 10, which stunned both Tenten and the entire crowd a moment, especially those from Konoha that knew her. She surprised everyone with her new speed. She knew she'd never be a powerhouse like Sakura, strength just wasn't her thing, but she had discovered what did work for her. "You're supposed to learn new tactics the last month, Tenten. I expected that. You'll have to do better if you want to win, and I know the flaw in your fighting style," Ino said with a smile, pulled a kunai with her left hand, took a loose version of the basic taijutsu stance, and started rocking her body gently, as if listening to music. Tenten wanted to ask Ino what the hell she was doing. This was a fight, not a dance club. "Sorry, Inakan," Tenten said, pulled a scroll from her belt pouch and with a quick hand sign released a 6-foot bow staff, and slipped the scroll back in. She did a quick kata then charged in. Ino threw her kunai, but she deflected it easily with the staff. She was surprised Ino would do that though. Everyone knew you didn't try to trade ranged attacks with her. Just before she was in range, she whipped the staff around for a quick and painless knockout blow, and almost lost her focus when Ino just dropped out of sight. Her sharp eyes quickly found Ino, on the ground in a full side splits. She followed through on her swing and brought the other end straight down hard at Ino's head, again going to a fast knockout. Ino crossed her arms above her head and blocked the strike, immediately turned her arms and grabbed the staff with both hands and yanked her forward using the momentum of the swing, released it with her right and sent a punch at her pussy. Tenten immediately released the staff and leapt forward, sailed over Ino, landing hands first, did a roll, twisted up onto her feet so she was facing Ino, a look of genuine shock on her face. Ino had improved dramatically. Ino did a roll into a handstand, pushed off with her hands, twisted in the air and landed on her face in her stance, facing Tenten. A big smile on her face. "Impressed?" Ino asked. The sudden roar of the crowd told her they were, and she loved it. Tenten smiled and nodded. "You've been busy," Tenten said casually. "You have no idea," Ino said, remembering the hell she'd put herself through the last month. In the stands, Kurenai smiled proudly. She'd apologized to Ino for what she'd done to her during one of their private sparring sessions when she realized she'd reacted to Ino's "speed bags" comment as a woman, not Ino's sensei. She was proud of Ino for how much she'd improved. Once she'd figured out what worked for Ino and how to make her absorb her lessons as fast as she did all the information on clothes and fashions, Ino improved by leaps and bounds. "If Naruto-kun knew what I did to Ino, I wouldn't be able to wear a bra for a month," Kurenai thought and hid the shiver of fear that ran down her spine and crossed her arms a little tighter over her large breasts protectively. As much as it pained her as an experienced, hard-as-nails jounin, and the greatest genjutsu expert in Fire Country, Naruto could wrap her around his finger and make her do anything he wanted. She was very glad he hadn't though, beyond a few childish pranks and common favors. She also knew the only thing keeping him from turning the Ice Queen of Konoha into his sex-crazed sub-eye bitch was the simple fact he hadn't married Hinata yet. And once that happened, she was getting fucked and there wasn't a damn thing she could do about it. Except for Might Guy, who was too much a gentleman, there wasn't a man in her age range that hadn't tried at least once to get her in bed. Or at least see her topless, though only a few people knew she was dating Kakashi. She'd asked them not to tell anyone because she liked her rep. She did enjoy teasing him. She'd only let him get as far as fondling his breasts through her clothes, a few more dates, and if he behaved she'd get topless for him. There was another thought that brought a subtle smile to her face though. She wasn't the only experienced kunoichi in this situation with Naruto, they all were. Even the legendary Tsunade was under his power. She knew what that power was now, but that knowledge didn't help her any. She wondered how Naruto would react if he knew every kunoichi of special jounin rank and higher, including the female ANBU and clan heads, had recently started holding a secret Naruto club meeting twice a week like a bunch of fangirls. Down in the arena Ino was flipping, twisting, spinning and rolling to avoid barrage after barrage of kunai from Tenten. Ino finally stopped and stared at Tenten, panting, slightly out of breath from the extreme exertion. "Damn it Tenten, are you trying to turn me into a pincushion? A couple of those almost gave me pierced nipples the hard way." Ino asked. Tenten landed from her last jump, 3 kunai in each hand, a big smile on her face. "They weren't fatal attacks Inakan. The med-means could have healed you easily. As much as I'd love to advance, there's another reason. I'm trying so hard. I can't tell you here though. It has to be Hinatakan, I can see her big tits in this somewhere. I have to end this soon, I'm no match for her at a distance and she'll never run out of weapons. I need to get closer." Ino thought then smiled deviously. "It's a dirty trick. But there aren't really any rules for these matches. I'm sorry Tenten-chan, you know I love you, but your giant clit is the key to my victory. Please forgive me." Ino thought, stood straight, fixed her hair then released her almost waist-length ponytail, causing her blonde hair to cascade down her back. Ino did the hair flip with her head then ran her fingers through her hair to fluff it, smiling seductively the whole time. She saw Tenten's reaction, then swallow nervously and her long nipples harden beneath her shirt. She wanted to save it for later but this was her only chance to win. She slowly reached down and ripped off the front and rear flaps, as they were designed to do, revealing her prominent camel toe and micro shorts hitched halfway up her firm ass. Gyrating her hips in slow circles she turned a circle as she undulated in a very erotic manner, accentuating her sexuality. As she turned back towards Tenten Ino saw she dropped her kunai and was struggling to hide her arousal. Her arms over her head, hands together, she carefully did several hand signs. As soon as she was in position she changed and locked her stance, and held her hand straight out in front of herself. "Mind transfer jutsu. No-oh." Tenten yelled too late, she knew it was over, she had no defense against this jutsu, she just wasn't strong enough. She could see and feel Ino in her mind, "Give it up Tenten, you can't escape. Surrender or I'll make you do something I guarantee will be so humiliating you'll never live it down. Please Tenten, I can also make you knock yourself out. Please don't force me to do either." Ino said to Tenten inside Tenten's mindscape. Tenten nodded. "Proctor. I, Tenten, forfeit the match." Tenten said. "Winner, Ino Yamanaka." The proctor said. Ino ended her jutsu, opened her eyes, looked around a moment, then smiled happily and stood up. One of the things she hated about using her family jutsu was her body went limp and always got her clothes dirty. She walked over to Tenten. "Congratulations Tenten, you made me work my ass off just to keep up with you. If I hadn't fought dirty like that you would have beaten me. I had to distract you or I never could have hit you with my family jutsu. You forgive me?" Ino said sincerely. Tenten sighed sadly, then smiled gently. "I understand. And I forgive you Inakan. Besides, I'm getting something special for doing my best, so it was worth it." Tenten said then hugged Ino, picked up the kunai she dropped, put them away, gave Ino a quick kiss on the lips and headed for her locker room. Ino waved to the still half-stunned crowd, then headed for her locker room. Inoiki turned to her husband. Before he could say anything. "I swear Inoichikan, I didn't teach Ino how to do that," she said sincerely. Inoichi sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose. "After this is over we're having a long talk with our daughter. And then I'm going to ground her for 3 months." Inoichi said angrily, then glared at Kurenai. Though disturbed and upset at what he just saw his princess do, underneath it all he knew she was a woman now and he had to treat her like one. He wanted to stay mad at his wife and daughter, but knew he'd apologize to them when they finally had that talk. Kurenai felt the glare on her, turned towards it, sighed softly then nodded to her fellow jounin. I'm going to get an earful on this from him, but Ino is an adult now and there's not really anything he can do about her. He always was too protective of her, he needs to let go of the fantasy she's still his pure little princess, he knows what she's doni. I hope Tsunade doesn't mind me bringing her in on this. Little did Kurenai know that very thing was forcing its way into the front of his mind. Oh Kami, I'm going to have to give Ino the talk. The Yamanaka clan head thought, as a hidden shudder of fear ran through his body. On the other hand, she's probably ready to learn our clan's advanced jutsu now. Damn it, I owe Kurenai an apology now too. In her chair with the other visiting Kages and the former third Hokage, the newly appointed fifth Hokage Tsunade was subtly smiling at the incredible show Ino had just put on. It matched anything she'd ever seen by an experienced infiltration kunoichi or exotic dancer. That girl has serious potential in several areas, she just needs the right sensei. I'll have to talk to her and her parents after the exams. Shit, I forgot about the invasion. I haven't had this job long, and still hate this place a little. But I'll be damned if I'll let anyone I care about get hurt. Tsunade thought and her small smile started to turn into a snarl. Something wrong. Tsunade snapped out of her thoughts, looked to her right and her smile returned. No Sarato Bison, nothing to worry about. Are you okay? You seem to be little flushed, would you like some water, it is rather hot today. Tsunade said and gave him a subtle look that let him know she knew it wasn't the weather that had him overheated, but Ino. When he nodded she signaled a Chunin guard to bring him some. She hoped his heart could take it, she'd spent a lot of time with him since she returned, and although she now knew he was as big a pervert as Kakashi had been, and almost as bad as her former teammate Jiraiya still was, for some reason she thought it made him cute. And was glad he was still capable despite being in his 70s. No. We're just friends, that's all. He was my sensei. I can't be having these feelings for him. Can I? Tsunade thought, a little confused inside. Then why do I want to show him my tits? If I did it could kill him. Hinata walked out into the arena confidently, she was looking forward to a great match with Sakurakin, very curious to see what her friend could do now. Hinata was anxious to show everyone what she could do as well, especially her family. She faced the Kage booth and gave them a full, formal bow of respect, then found her family in the crowd and politely bowed to them. Sakura walked out full of confidence and pride, a month ago she'd been near death, and now she was stronger than ever, and not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. After she'd recovered from her surgery and found out she had a Kekkei Genkai. Tsunade had verbally ripped her a new ass about what she did in her preliminary match, never in her life had she heard such language, but afterward Tsunade had explained why she did it and made several things crystal clear to her. She was never to open more than 3 chakra gates again unless it was a serious life and death situation and all other options had been exhausted first. If she did Tsunade would personally beat the lesson into her, Kunoikito Kunoichi wouldn't hold anything back. Tsunade then gave her 2 glances that had made her cover her small chest and cross her legs. That message got through very loud and very clear. Ready. The proctor said and waited a moment for them to nod. Fight. He yelled. 10 leapt back. The instant the proctor said fight, Sakura dropped down, almost to one knee, punched the ground with her right fist and opened a fissure in the ground that went about 6 feet past Hinata and was about 5 feet wide from end to end. Hinata just barely managed to dive and roll to her right and was instantly back up to her feet in her gentle fist stance, Byakugan blazing. Dear Kami, that was fast. And that was Tsunadesima's fissure technique. Hinata thought. Damn. Sakura said quietly to herself. She really didn't want a long battle with Hinata, or have to fight her with taijutsu. Hinata was too fast and would shut down her chakra in moments, leaving her helpless. I hope this works. Sakura thought and began flashing through a series of hand signs. Sakura finished and held the last sign. Cherry Blossom Petal Storm. Sakura yelled as she put nearly half her chakra into her ultimate genjutsu. Kurenai had told her it would only be about 50% effective against the Byakugan, but it was her best chance without having to reveal her bloodline limit to everyone. That was her secret ace. She really didn't want to use it against Hinata. A new genjutsu. Hinata said, not sure if the Byakugan would let her see through it. It didn't feel like a drank, she could defeat those. This was a crank, possibly brank genjutsu she had to have learned from Kurenai. Hinata watched as hundreds, then thousands of cherry blossom petals filled the arena. And basically hid Sakura from her vision, but not completely. Hinata put her hands together. Kai. Hinata said, trying to dispel the genjutsu, and gritted her teeth. When it failed. She's too strong. I'm sorry, Sakura-kun. Hinata said, then focusing chakra into her hand raced at Sakura. In the stands, more than half of everyone watching lost sight of the fighters, unable to see through Sakura's genjutsu. One of the people that could see was Kurenai. Come on, Sakura-kun, I want to win this bet with Anko too. Make it a clean sweep against Anko's team and I'll give you something special. Kurenai thought. Kurenai saw Hinata charging in and saw Hinata's right hand glowing blue. The moment she knew what it was, she panicked inside. She knew what Hinata was going to do, and though temporary would end the match if it hit. She saw Sakura try to counter, but couldn't watch the outcome of the clash and closed her eyes. There were two screams. She quickly opened her eyes as the genjutsu faded. And gasped. Sakura was sitting on her feet, arms wrapped around her stomach. Hinata was 2 feet away on her knees, face twisted in pain, both hands clutching her crotch. Hinata's chakra scalpel had hit just before Sakura's kick and cut off her chakra, which is why Hinata wasn't on the far side of the arena unconscious. Hinata, still wincing, moved forward on her knees and raised her right fist. Her Byakugan was still active. She knew Hinata wasn't going to use a Juken strike, she was just going to knock out Sakura the old-fashioned way. Sakura looked up from the ground, saw Hinata just within range for her punch, lashed out with her own punch. And froze in fear when Hinata simply caught her fist in her left hand. What did you do to me? Sakura asked, quickly getting scared. I severed your connection to your chakra coils. You're just a regular girl, Sakura-kun, I'm sorry, but without your chakra you can't beat me. Hinata said sadly, then drew her fist back a little more and gritted her teeth. Proctor, I surrender. Sakura yelled sadly, tears forming in her eyes. It crushed her to say it, but there was no way she could beat Hinata without her chakra. Short of resorting to some very nasty, and extremely painful, humiliating catfight tactics that made a kick in the crotch look like nothing, she wouldn't do that to Hinata. Winner, Hinata Hyuga. The proctor said. I'm very sorry, Sakura, let me reverse what I did. Hinata said, reformed her chakra scalpel and reattached Sakura's severed primary chakra coil. Thank you, Hinata. And I'm sorry I kicked you, it was a reflex. Congratulations. Sakura said sincerely as she pushed back her tears. She was disappointed she lost, but that didn't mean she still couldn't be promoted to Chunin. She'd done her best and was proud of herself. Besides, Ino is my teammate, and I think you have a better chance of beating her than I do. You're better equipped. Sakura said quietly with a smirk and glanced at Hinata's chest, being sure Hinata saw her do it. Hinata giggled, blushed slightly for a moment and nodded. Thank you, Sakura-kun. In the stands, Kurenai glanced at Anko and saw a subtle but very familiar sadistic smile on her face. She was really regretting what she'd bet Anko for this match, but it was Anko's condition for accepting the rest of her bets. She hit it perfectly, but inside Kurenai was whimpering at what Anko was going to make her do. Maybe I'll get lucky and get injured during the invasion, that'll give me time to work out a compromise with Anko. Or at least guilt her into letting me out of it. August 21, 8:20 a.m., outdoor arena. The arena had been cleaned and everything was ready for the most anticipated match of the day. There was just one little problem. Neither fighter was ready, and the proctor wasn't going to call for them until he got word they were. Room 34. Naruto knew they shouldn't be in his room. He was about to fight Gaara, and even if he was fully prepared to beat him and even Shikaku, he could still get hurt. That was part of his current problem. Hinata knew that as well as he did, which is why he was currently unable to tell her he was late for the match. She was giving him what she called the Hinata Hyuga, extra special, super good luck kiss. She didn't want him getting hurt, even if she knew he healed really fast and has unbeatable good luck already. What was he going to do? Refuse and hurt her feelings? Hinata was giving him a very passionate kiss, her hands up his shirt rubbing his hard, muscular chest. Her jacket was open and her breasts out, resting in his hands. To his right Tenten was kissing his cheek, her bare breasts pressed against him. Temari was on his left doing the same thing. He felt Hinata's hands slid out of his shirt, take his hands and put them on Tenten's and Temari's breasts, then she broke her kiss. It took every ounce of willpower he had to keep himself relaxed. He didn't need everyone seeing him excited in that way. That should do it. Naruto-kun. Thank you to American, Tenten-chan. You can let go of their breasts now. Naruto-kun. Hinata said, then giggled. Naruto quickly pulled his hands away. Heh. Sorry. You really didn't have to do this, Hinata-kun. Hinata put a finger over his mouth. That's as far as I can go, as you know. I just want you to be safe. I know you'll beat Gaara and save him from himself, but there's also the invasion we have to worry about. Most of us will probably get sent to protect the civilians, but you'll be out there fighting because unlike us, you're special. We can handle small battles, but you can fight a whole army and everyone in Konoha knows it. We kept you long enough, now go win this for us. Naruto-kun. Protect your friends. Hinata said and gently pushed him towards the door. Go get him. Naruto-kun. Tenten and Temari said together, looked at each other. They started giggling. Only someone as lucky as me could deserve a girl like Hinata-kun. Naruto thought, smiled and waved, then ran out of the room. The door opened and shut so fast you almost couldn't tell someone had gone through it. Hokage box and Anbu appeared next to Tsunade. Naruto is on his way. Hokage-sama. About time. Tsunade said and sent the signal to the proctor, who smiled. The crowd was getting a little restless waiting, though it had only been delayed 5 minutes. She had a feeling he was delayed by a certain girl, but didn't say anything. You ready, sensei? Tsunade asked with a certain look in her eyes she knew he'd understand. Sarutobi looked at her and saw the glint in her eyes. Hi, it should be quite exciting, he said as he casually touched the battle armor under his robes. He hated war, but even if he wasn't Hokage, as long as was alive he was going to protect Konoha with his very life. He'd even taken some special precautions, the least of them being the custom battle armor he had on. Arena floor. Naruto came out just after the proctor called his name. Most of the crowd stood and cheered wildly. Being from Konoha they knew who he was and that he was powerful, though most of the civilians in attendance had no idea just how powerful. Only the older adults even knew what he had sealed inside him, and were very glad they'd been wrong about him. While they were now, most still felt guilty about how they'd treated him when he was little. Naruto stood and waved to the crowd for several minutes, very amused. When he was little he would have killed to get this kind of attention. Tsunade was squirming in her seat, a big smile on her red face. It was taking most of her willpower not to join them or burst into tears of joy at their reaction. She was so happy it almost hurt. She glanced at Sarutobi. He was handling it much better than she was, but he was still smiling. A few more minutes then I'll stop it, Tsunade thought. Room 13. Kankuro watched his little brother nervously, continually glancing up at the monitor. He'd told Gaara Suna wasn't going to help Sound attack Konoha, but he wasn't surprised Gaara didn't care if they did or not. he was standing as usual and staring intently at the monitor. He hadn't even blinked since Naruto came out about 4 minutes ago. Even if others didn't, he knew the very subtle signs that told him Gaara was very anxious to begin the match. The only good thing that had happened during the exams was that although he'd threatened about a dozen people with a horrible death, none of them had been from Konoha. It was to him an incredible sight to see his little brother politely avoid anyone from Konoha, even stepping aside to let them pass. He knew it had to be whatever Naruto said to him after the preliminaries. He hadn't so much as insulted anyone from Konoha since then. He saw the crowd calm down, then heard the proctor call Gaara's name. As soon as he did, Gaara vanished in a swirl of wind and sand, and appeared in the arena. He relaxed and headed for the door. He wanted to watch the match in person, and be there for Gaara when it was over. Arena floor. The proctor glanced at Tsunade for her nod, then took a deep breath. Fight! He yelled, then shoo-shined up to the Kage's box. There was no way in hell he was staying down there during this match. The arena went silent for a moment. Naruto called up about half of his own chakra as he got in his fighting stance, and a moment later felt Gaara call up about the same amount. He saw Gaara's face change slightly, but he couldn't tell if Gaara was happy or disappointed. He was only using his chakra, not Kyuubi's, unlike Gaara who was only using Shikaku's chakra. Do not insult me, I want a real fight. I have not harmed anyone from Konoha, now give me the great battle I deserve. Gaara said emotionlessly. Naruto actually paused, slightly stunned for an instant, then glanced at Tsunade for her approval. He didn't want to reveal Kyuubi if he didn't have to, especially with Sound's attack being so close. Her answer was a little surprising. As long as you don't attack anyone but me, I'll do it. But you hurt anyone and I'll show you what true power really is. Understood? Naruto said very seriously as he looked into Gaara's eyes and let him see Kyuubi in his. Gaara nodded, as his chakra spiked and the sand around him for 10 feet began to swirl violently around him, as if anxious for battle. Naruto called on Kyuubi's chakra and a moment later his eyes turned red, his pupils became vertical slits, his whisker marks got darker and thicker, his canines elongated and his nails became claws. He was then surrounded by a red chakra cloak which sprouted a single tail. Now let's show these people what a real fight looks like. Naruto said and dashed forward at incredible speed. Sand Shuriken! Gaara exclaimed as a wall of sand quickly but briefly rose up. Dozens of sand balls shot out at Naruto and quickly took on a Kyuubi-like shape. Naruto weaved through the barrage easily, not that he needed to, as he flashed through a series of hand signs. The instant he cleared the barrage of sand kunai he stopped and very quickly inhaled. Fire style, flame cannon. Naruto said and blew out a continuous cone of fire at Gaara, who was surrounded by a bubble-like dome of sand that protected him from the intense heat and flames that surrounded the sand shield. In his room, Sasuke was nearly gawking at the monitor. Naruto was using a fire jutsu that he didn't know. He watched for 2 full minutes as Naruto blew out a constant stream of fire, finally snapping out of it. Son of a bitch has been holding out on me. Did Naruto create that or did he? When this is over I'm gonna find out if he can teach that to me. Sasuke said, impressed, and slightly jealous of his friend. Naruto finally stopped just after 2 minutes, and watched the flames die down to reveal Gaara in a bubble of black glass, which shattered as soon as the fire was gone, spraying shards of hot glass around the arena. Naruto glanced up at the nearest wall and was glad to see none of the glass reach them. Some of the shards bounced off his chakra cloak. And when he looked, Gaara did not look happy, or maybe he was, he really couldn't tell yet. The only emotion Gaara seemed to know how to express was anger. Gaara glanced around a moment at the melted sand, which was now useless to him, then right at Naruto and gave him a full toothy smile, which of course had an edge of sadistic glee to it. My turn. Gaara said coldly and extended his open right hand. Sand coffin. A huge mass of sand quickly rose up and surrounded Naruto except for his face. Naruto recognized it. Show me how strong you really are. Or die. Gaara said calmly, then closed his hand. Sand burial. In the stands next to his sister Temari, Kankuro was nervous. He'd seen the AMBU of other villages crushed to pulp by that jutsu. He turned to Temari when she grabbed his hand. Can he get out? Temari asked worriedly. Hinata squeezed Temari's other hand now in hers and smiled. Hi, Temari-kun. Naruto-kun told me he planned for this. Several moments passed when gasps started to be heard around the arena, starting from the Suna crowd who'd seen this countless times. What made them gasp was that the sand wasn't contracting, but slowly expanding. And a yell could be heard from inside as it rapidly got louder. Gaara was more stunned than anyone, except maybe Shikaku, who was yelling in frustration in his mind that the Kyuubi vessel wasn't being crushed. Gaara put more and more chakra into it to crush Naruto, but it kept expanding. He'd never been challenged like this before. He found it frightening he was being overpowered, and very exciting to have found a worthy opponent finally. After a full minute the sand was almost in a bubble around Naruto and the animalistic yell from within was almost deafening. Then it exploded. When the dust cleared, Naruto stood there, a big feral smile on his face, and a chakra tail behind him as long as he was tall. Come on Shikaku, I know you can do better than that. You little bitch. Let her out Gaara, she needs a lesson in humility. Naruto's voice said. Shikaku is female? Naruto asked Kyuubi. Kyuubi laughed. Oh come on kid, you didn't figure it out. Why do you think he called Shikaku mother? You think any self-respecting male demon would allow that? Take me over, no. This is my battle, Gaara said. If you don't know how to summon her, then I'll do it for you. Naruto said in a deeper voice than normal and began to flash through a long series of hand signs. Shikaku is female? Tsunade half said to, half asked Sarutobi. Sarutobi just shrugged, he was speechless for once, even he didn't know that. In the arena Gaara tensed up, as if in pain, and a dome of sand started to form around him. No, leave me alone. Don't drag me out without my sand. No, don't do it Kyuubi-sama, don't do it. Gaara screamed in an obviously terrified female demon's voice. Demon Lord's request, beast summon. Kyuubi said through Naruto. A moment later there was an inhuman female scream and a puff of smoke between Naruto and Gaara. When it cleared, kneeling on the ground, hunched over, hands over her face, was a girl in light and dark brown robes like Gaara wore, but it only went over her right shoulder, the left and both arms were bare. She had wild red hair to her waist and desert sandals. Everyone froze in shock, the whole arena was dead silent. She stood, head down. When she raised her head she had the same red kanji for love over her left eye like Gaara, and was Gaara's height. She looked about 16 to 18 years old, very beautiful with a strong toned body judging from her arms, but what really stood out about her, literally, was her breasts. They looked like they were as big as Tsunade's, but didn't sag as much, only a few inches it looked like. She had a few tears in her eyes, then ran at Naruto, who changed back to normal, screaming at both him and Kyuubi for what they did to her, forcing her out into the open without her sand, breasts bouncing wildly under her robe. She obviously had nothing on under it. When she got to Naruto she began beating on his chest like a little girl. She didn't seem to know how to fight. Tsunade watched the scene stunned. She couldn't help but notice that Shikuka was built like her when she was 18. Before her breasts dropped. If Kyuubi is the oldest and strongest of the tailed demons and only looks about 30. It makes sense that the one-tailed would be a teenager. Though I must admit even I never saw this coming. Tsunade thought. Naruto just stood there in shock and took it, he really didn't know what to do. He glanced past his attacker to Gaara, who was standing there like a statue, apparently too stunned to do anything. Thinking quickly he did the only thing he could think of to do in a situation like this. He wrapped his arms around her and gave her in a tight hug and didn't let go. He heard Kyuubi tell him to kiss her, but he refused. When she went back into Gaara's mind she could share the memory of that with him, and the thought of even indirectly doing that bothered him. Hugging a guy was one thing, friends can hug, but he had no interest in doing anything else beyond that with Gaara. Everyone watched as Shikaku, the girl, slowly stopped fighting Naruto after several minutes, put her head on his shoulder, hugged him back and started crying. "Please. Give me my sand or put me back. I don't want to die," Shikaku said sadly, between sobs. Naruto's mindscape there, that should humble that little boy. Kyuubi said smugly, then suddenly tensed up and slowly looked to his right and saw Lady Luck standing there, arms crossed over her chest, her face stern. "Hey, I'm in trouble aren't I?" Kyuubi asked. When she nodded, Kyuubi winced. "I know I shouldn't have done that, but you know how I get." Okay, I'm doing it," Kyuubi said and began releasing Naruto. Real world, that's why Gaara can't fight, because she can't. She's helpless without her sand and so is Gaara. Naruto thought. "I won't kill you, and neither will Kyuubi, I promise," Naruto said, then gently put his right hand under her chin and raised her head up and back so she was looking at him. "You don't have to kill people. If you stop tormenting Gaara and let him sleep without trying to take him over, I'll be your friend. We all will. You also have Gaara's brother and sister. If you got to know them you might find that you like having precious people to care for and protect like I do. That's what makes you strong. Oh. Please don't share all this with Gaara, you can tell him, but don't share the memories. Promise me you won't share the memories and feelings you have with him. And I'll kiss you," Naruto said. "Really, you do that, be my friend?" Shikaku asked. When Naruto nodded she smiled and a new warm feeling appeared inside her, though it was small. "I promise, you have my word as a demon Kyuubi-sama. Call me Naruto, I'm back in control now." "Thank you, Shikaku-kun," Naruto said warmly, had a talk with Lady Luck in his mind, then took a deep breath, let it out and in front of everyone kissed her on the lips for a full 10 seconds, using Lady Luck's power on her like he had Tsunade to heal her emotionally, broke the kiss and his eyes changed to Kyuubi's. "Dismissed," Naruto said, then his eyes returned to normal and the happily smiling Shikaku vanished in a puff of smoke, reappearing in Gaara's mind. Gaara suddenly snapped out of his daze and fell to his knees, his head felt like it was spinning. "I submit," Gaara said. The proctor shoeshined back into the arena, looked at Gaara a moment, then raised a hand toward Naruto. "Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. The next round will begin in 15 minutes. In the stands a silver-haired man pushed up his glasses with his right hand as he gritted his teeth in frustration. "Oh, I'm afraid the rest of the exams will be cancelled. If Gaara and the Suna Nins won't help us they can all die with the rest of Konoha. And I'm going to personally kill you Naruto Uzumaki, though you actually did me a favor by killing Orochimaru, you ruined my plans and forced me to move up my timetable. It cost a fortune to hire all the extra earth, water and lining nin, as well as the few nuke nin we could find, but it'll be worth it to make Konoha mine," Kabuto said quietly to himself beneath his hood. August 21, 8:34 a.m., outdoor arena, med station inside room 6 stood Naruto, Hinata at his right. Across from him standing next to the bed was Kankuro and Temari, sitting on the side of the bed between them was Gaara, still in shock at what had happened. The sand on the ground in the arena and even on the floor hadn't so much as twitched since Shikaku was forced out by Kyuubi, who he knew the last few minutes had been in the angry grip of Lady Luck. Literally. From the male screams of pain he'd heard he had a feeling he knew what part, but didn't want to find out for sure, even thinking about. That made him flinch and his thighs tense up a little. Naruto sighed. "How are you Gaara?" Gaara hadn't even blinked in several minutes, he'd seen Shikaku outside his mind, and in human form for the first time. He'd always considered Shikaku like his mother, and treated her as such and fed her people's blood as she demanded of him to make her happy. To find out she was a girl physically and emotionally only a couple years older than he was. disturbed him in a way he'd never experienced. She'd been talking to him in his mindscape, she'd done as Naruto had asked her, and now he was lost and confused. He didn't know how to handle this Shikaku. She was not only still in human form but she was nice to him, no yelling, no threats, she'd even apologized for how she'd treated him his entire life. What do I do now? Gaara finally asked blankly. Temari glanced at Hinata, then did something she'd always been terrified to do. She stepped close to her baby brother and wrapped her arms around him in a warm, loving, sisterly hug. Kankuro gasped in shock and took a step back out of reflex. But what happened isn't what he expected. Gaara raised his right arm like he did for his sand coffin jutsu, his left pinned by Temari's hug, paused a moment, then put it around Temari's shoulders. The lower half of his left arm was around her waist. He let out the breath he didn't realize he'd been holding, stepped close to them nervously, and hugged his siblings for the first time. We'll help you figure that out, Gaara. We're your family, and family always protect each other no matter what. Gaara thought about that a few moments. That's like what Naruto said, your friends, and especially your family are your precious people, and to protect your precious people from danger is how you find your true strength. Never one to overthink anything. He made his decision then and there and everything became clearer than it had ever been. You're our family. Gaara said as sand seemed to come from everywhere and formed two tentacles, that pulled Naruto and Hinata close where he freed his left arm and hugged all four of them. All of you. We'll protect you. We? Temari asked, confused. Shikaku and I, we have decided we want to have a family, we've never had that before. You are our own blood and our most precious people. Naruto is like me and is our friend and brother. Hinata is precious to you, Temari, so she is precious to us now, our little sister. And we will kill anyone that hurts our precious people. Gaara said calmly but seriously. Everyone flinched slightly at the last statement. Gaara had never failed to follow through on a threat to kill someone. You can't just kill people that upset you, Gaara, but we'll talk about that later. This is a good start though. Naruto said, then his head snapped up and he forcibly broke from the group hug, his face serious. What is it, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked a little worried. She knew that look, something was wrong. Something is happening in the arena. It started, sound is attacking sooner than expected. Naruto said seriously. Gaara broke away from Kankuro and Temari as his sand flared up around him. They will not hurt our precious people. Gaara said in his old, dead voice. Kankuro, Temari, stay with Hinata-kun and do what she says. You know what to do. Gaara, come with me. It's playtime, demon style. Naruto said with a big grin, then put a hand on Gaara's shoulder and they vanished in a swirl of leaves. Kankuro shivered a moment. He'd swear he saw a smile appear on Gaara's face just before he vanished. The last time he saw him smile like that was in the Forest of Death when he was slaughtering those teams from Mist and Rain. The arena. Naruto and Gaara appeared in the middle of the arena. Naruto looked around quickly, saw the feathers and knew someone had cast a sleeping genjutsu on everyone. I don't have time to free them one at a time. Sorry folks, I hope this doesn't hurt too much. Naruto said, crouched, leapt high in the air as he summoned Kyuubi's chakra and clapped his hands hard. Kai! Naruto yelled as he released a wave of red chakra in all directions. It hit everyone like a quick blast of intense heat, snapping everyone under the genjutsu out of it with a yell of surprise and/or pain. He landed, looked around quickly and smiled. It worked. I'll have to remember that trick. Wait here, I'll be right back. Naruto said, then shushined to the Hokage box where Tsunade and Sarutobi were giving commands to Anbu and a few jounin. Send 2 squads to the main gate to reinforce. Tsunade commanded, then turned suddenly and smiled when Naruto appeared. Naruto and Gaara ready to kick ass, where do you want us? Naruto asked with a big smile. Never mind the gate, Send all available ANBU to protect the civilians and get them to the shelters. You, help the genin get all civilians and diplomats out of the arena to the shelters, they can protect them from any small attacks until they're in the shelters, then reinforce them with a squad of ANBU. Tsunade said to the two ANBU who both nodded and vanished after getting their orders. You're just what I needed right now, Naruto. I was just informed that an army of at least 1,000 shinobi are massed outside the walls about half a mile from the main gate. Jiraiya is busy, so I want you and Gaara out there. I'm temporarily recending all previous orders about Kyuubi, and I'm giving Gaara the same rights. I want you and Gaara to stop them by any means necessary. This is now an S-rank mission. Tsunade said seriously as she looked into Naruto's eyes, then leaned down and kissed him on the lips. She'd hoped she'd never have to say this to him. Unleash hell, Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled, and shooshined back to Gaara, grabbed his shoulder and shooshined them to 50 yards outside the main gate. What did she say? Gaara asked. Naruto smiled as his eyes turned blood red and his pupils became vertical slits. Unleash hell. The look of absolute sadistic joy that appeared on Gaara's face would have made even a hardened ANBU shit his pants in fear. Gaara took a big step back. I need 3 minutes. Sand cocoon. He exclaimed as he used his ultimate jutsu. It was because it released Shikaku. A dome of sand quickly rose up around Gaara and started his transformation into his final form. Naruto started counting down in his head, looked down the road at the massive army approaching, and went into his mindscape. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto entered the main room where Kyuubi's cage was and saw Lady Luck standing there, looking solemn. I can't help directly, you know that, Naruto, but I have something for you that will help you more than even your six-tailed form. You know what risk you take by doing that. I can't allow it, just yet. There are more than expected. Someone has altered what was to happen. There should only be half as many. I prepared this for when you were a little older, but I must balance the scales of fate again. She said, then held out both hands and a 3-foot-long scroll appeared. She laid it on the floor and unrolled about a foot of it. Naruto quickly scanned it, then gasped in shock. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Is this real? He asked. When she nodded, he started to laugh strangely, like maniacal joy. Be warned, Naruto, this was intended to be given to you on your 13th birthday in just under 2 months when you'd be more powerful. There are things about my gift you don't know. Once you use this, you will only have 5 minutes, then it will end and you will be knocked out until morning from chakra exhaustion, so do not waste this. It is a last resort only. She said seriously, took Naruto's right hand, touched her fingernails to his fingertips, then raked them down to his wrist, leaving his hand bloody. She placed his hand on the paper at a certain spot, then removed it, rubbed his hand, and it was instantly healed except for his index fingertip. Naruto nodded and signed below his handprint. A moment later it turned into black ink. She rolled it up as he stood. Thank you, I will not let you down. Naruto said calmly, nodded to Kyuubi and vanished. The real world. 1 second later Naruto transformed slightly as he summoned almost 1 tael worth of Kyuubi's chakra, but enough to activate his red chakra cloak, then quickly cutting his thumb on a Fong flashed through the hand signs and summoned Gamabunta in a huge puff of smoke. The massive toad boss looked around a moment. Did you summon me, Jiraiya, you pervert? He bellowed. I summoned you, Gamabuntasima. Sound is invading Konoha with an army of at least 1,000 ninja. We have to stop them. I need your help until Shikaku emerges to help me. Gamabunta looked down at Naruto and cocked his head to the side. Did you say Shikaku is going to help us? I'll tell you everything later, I promise, but we have to move now before they get too close. Will you help me? Naruto said. Of course, I can't let Shikaku show me up protecting the home of my summoner. The toad boss said. Naruto leapt up onto Bunta's head. I know Shikaku is a girl, I met her about 20 minutes ago. I'll explain what happened later, but she's reformed now, I promise. You never cease to amaze me, kid. Gamabunta said, then covered the distance between them and the invading army in a single leap, actually landing on and crushing about 5,060 of them, mostly sound mean. Oil, quick! Naruto yelled, felt Bunta nod slightly and began the hand signs. Now! Naruto yelled, as soon as he saw the oil he blew a stream of fire at it. The huge stream of toad oil ignited and incinerated about 140,160 more. Do what you can here, then go back to Konoha. Jiraiya could probably use your help more than me. Naruto said, then leapt from Gamabunta's head toward a big group of various ninja. A red chakra tail sprouted from behind him and huge chakra claws formed around his hands. He cut 3 sound mean into large chunks as he landed. Gamabunta chuckled, sounding like distant thunder, then stepped on about 3,040 more with all 4 feet. He was hit by several fire and lightning jutsu, but the damage and pain were minor for the giant toad boss. He was very powerful, but he wasn't stupid. He knew his limits, and against these numbers knew even he could be overpowered eventually. He stepped on and crushed 2 more small groups with his front feet. You're on your own now, kid. I'm going to Konoha. Gamabunta said, then with a mighty leap rose high into the sky. Naruto quickly glanced over his shoulder toward Konoha with a small smile as kunai bounced off his chakra cloak. Only 2 minutes and 12 seconds left. Naruto thought, then a second chakra tail appeared behind him, both extended and flattened into blades and began cutting ninja behind him into pieces, going through armor as easily as flesh and spraying blood everywhere. Only his chakra cloak kept their blood and other severed body parts off him. He stopped a moment. This was too easy. They were just pawns. He needed to find the leaders. In an army this size they had to have commanders to keep everyone organized. Reaching out with his senses he found the nearest powerful chakra signature and ran straight for it, cutting down dozens of enemies with his chakra claws and 2 tails like a scythe through wheat. Naruto stopped when he burst into a small clearing around the commander. He recognized him from the bingo book and knew even 2 tails might not be enough to beat him. It was Raiga, an S-ranked Nuke-nin, and one of the legendary 7 swordsmen of the mist. A third tail formed behind him. Raiga turned a moment after someone killed the men surrounding him and smiled. He knew from Kabuto's description who his guest had to be and drew both his swords. He gestured to his troops who began moving away from him. They didn't want to get fried by his lightning attacks. 1 minute and 28 seconds left. Come on, Gaara, even I can't handle this many alone. We're too close to Konoha. I won't go all out unless I have to. I can do this at least. Naruto thought, cancelled his chakra claws and made a modified version of his favorite hand sign. He'd only done this in his mindscape. This better work, Kyuubi. Naruto thought as he summoned 2 tails worth of Kyuubi's chakra for the jutsu. Demon Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto yelled, then 100 Narutos appeared around the battlefield. All of them had slitted red eyes, fangs and claws, but no chakra cloak. I'll handle him, don't let them reach Konoha. Naruto said and drew his sword from under his coat in his back. You'll be the second swordsman I kill. Raiga paused a moment then laughed briefly. So it is true, you killed Zabuza Momochi. He was the weakest of us. You won't beat me like you did him, he was a pussy compared to my power. He said as his blades began to crackle with lightning. That's what you think. Naruto thought, with a home and friends Izara, as he knew the former Nuke-nin, had greatly increased in skill and power. Sure, she was still a lewd, short-tempered bitch that loved to scare people and party hard. When alone with her other close friends, especially him and Anko Sensei, she was more like Anko, a big goofy kid, and even motherly toward her daughter Sekka. At least officially that was the record. Haku has basically been adopted when she changed her name to Sekka. He hoped they were doing okay. He knew there was no way in hell Izara and Sekka were going to sit back and hide while Konoha was being attacked. He almost felt sorry for anyone she met. Almost, but not quite. Konoha, near the outdoor stadium, her shoulder-length black hair in a ponytail, a heavy black vest over a blue shirt, loose black skirt, fingerless black leather gloves and sandals, she swung her 6'4" sword. 5 feet of which was the blade, cutting 3 more enemy shinobi in half at the chest with a huge, happy smile on her face, gave it a quick shake sending most of the blood on it flying off, glanced around then slung man-eater over her shoulder. Oh come on yeah buncha pussies. Don't tell me you big, bad shinobi are afraid of lil me. Izara said as she put her left hand on her chest and a fake look of questioning shock on her face. The 23 remaining shinobi, a mix of Chunin and Jounin from various countries, glanced at each other. They were getting worried now. This huge woman wasn't Tsunade because she didn't use a weapon, and she didn't have a leaf hiteite on, but she was cutting them down with ease. Who are you? You aren't a leaf shinobi because I know them all. The commander of what remained of this group demanded, one of the few that was still wearing a hiteite, sound in his case. Since you huis have been so much fun, I'll tell you. I'm just a simple weaponsmith. I have my card here, I can tell you guys need the help, those weapons are pathetic. I probably couldn't cut butter with those kunai you've been using. Izara said, then with her left pulled a card from her vest pocket and held it up. I'd be happy to sell you some quality swir. Izara stopped and caught the kunai one of them threw with her left hand without dropping her card, but it did punch half the blade through it. She looked at the card and her face slowly changed to an angry frown. Now I'm all for a good prank, and can trade insults with the best. I even like it when people make lewd sexual comments about me. I even love getting in a good clothes ripping catfight with a bar full of drunk, jealous bitches because I stole all their action. But that was my lucky card, damn it, it was a gift from a very special friend of mine. Izara said angrily, flipped the 350-pound sword off her shoulder and drove the point into the ground, then pulled the card off the kunai carefully and put it back in her pocket. Naruto gave me that, you bastards, now this is personal. Izara thought and glanced around and smiled. She knew there was a good-sized strem not 100 yards away in the nearby forest. And my name. She said, lifted her sword with her right and began twirling it in a butterfly pattern in front of her. Within 20 seconds it was moving too fast for even the Jounin to see it. She did a lightning quick spin to her right and swung the sword from left to right at waist level. Maelstrom of blood. Izara yelled with rage and unleashed one of her new water kenjutsu techniques. Where she'd swung her sword was a curved line of water as long and thick at the blade of her sword. A moment later dozens of huge sharks made of water erupted from the water her slash left in the air and began tearing the enemy shinobi into large bloody chunks. Heads, limbs, and gallons of blood started to cover the ground. She listened to their screams as they were all quickly and brutally torn apart, a big sadistic smile on her face. Is Izara? She said, then turned and headed back into the stadium at a run. A single tear ran down her right cheek. The first card Naruto had given her he'd hand-printed and given to her when he bought her a weapon shop, but unlike her good friend Tenten and her parents, she specialized in swords, and even had a special deal with them to share business. That card was one of her few treasured possessions. Half a mile from Konoha's main gate. Don't make me kill you, Raiga. Just walk away. Naruto asked as he crossed swords with Raiga. Naruto leapt back when Raiga tried to separate his upper body from his lower body. You're almost out of time. My clones are killing your men, you won't reach Konoha. Naruto exclaimed. Raiga let out a laugh. I'm one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. I agreed to help level Konoha, and that's what I'm going to do. I'll either succeed or die. There are no other options for. Raiga said, then suddenly looked toward Konoha like everyone else when there was a massive explosion near. But not inside Konoha. Naruto sighed sadly. I'm sorry, Raiga, but you and all your men are dead. Time's up. August 21st, 8:36 a.m., Konoha Outdoor Stadium. Tsunadesima Mizuki is leading 20 nin to intercept the 2 genin teams taking the diplomats to the shelter. The ANBU said from one knee immediately after appearing in front of Tsunade. Damn it. I knew I should have had him watched. Is anyone available to help them? Tsunade asked, worried. The ANBU shook his head. Sorry Tsunadesima, everyone is busy defending the civilians or repelling the invaders, we can't spare anyone. Tsunade clenched her fists and jaw, this was one of her nightmares as Hokage. Worse, she knew if anything happened to Naruto's friends he'd snap. Then movement below caught her eye and she smiled. Izara get to the shelters immediately, Mizuki is leading 20 nin to kill the diplomates, Hinata, Tenten and Kurenai's team are guarding them. Tsunade yelled. Izara froze a moment, made a hand sign with her left and a moment later Sekka appeared. Our friends are in trouble. Izara commanded then grabbed Sekka's shoulder and they vanished. I hope they can. Tsunade said then suddenly turned when there was a huge explosion she knew came from just outside the main gate where she'd sent Naruto and Gaara. A small shiver ran down her spine when an inhuman roar rang out that reminded her of Kyuubi's attack 12 years ago, then she saw it, even from this distance and over the 150-foot outer walls of the stadium. At what she estimated to be about 500 feet tall was Shikaku, in full demon form. I hope I did the right thing, Kami help us if I was wrong. Half a mile from Konoha looking down at the mostly charred corpse of Raiga the now five-tailed Naruto quickly took out a scroll, opened it on the ground, pulled the twin swords from Raiga's burnt bony hands, with a fast swing cut off Raiga's burned but identifiable head, quickly sealed his swords and head inside it, and in a quick fluid move grabbed it, rolled it up AMD stuck it in a pocket. Naruto dropped to all fours, fanned out his 5 chakra tails, his red chakra cloak darkened for a moment. Kyuubi style, Lake of Fire. Naruto roared as his tails glowed bright red and his now fox-like chakra cloak lightened to normal. Except for the 5-foot circle he was standing on, the ground for 100 years in every direction melted into flaming magma and swallowed everyone on it down to a slow fiery death. Within 30 seconds they were all dead. Naruto cancelled the jutsu and it changed to rock. Air bullet. Shikaku roared from a quarter mile away, opened her mouth and fired a massive air bullet at the enemy nin, followed by 4 more, each knocking out or just killing about 50 shinobi in 5 huge explosions. Seeing all the death and destruction, she laughed with sadistic glee, she hasn't had this much fun since her previous host over 100 years ago. Easily spotting Naruto hundreds of feet away she smiled. I can't let you have all the fun. Twin Sand Tsunami, Shikaku roared happily as she raised her arms. Still in the clearing made by his jutsu, Naruto heard the attack and watched as on both sides of the clearing, to the now screaming shinobi, a 300-foot high, 600-foot wide tidal wave of sand rose up and crashed forward, crushing and entombing over half the remailing army under 2,030 feet of sand. Naruto smirked and Kyuubi laughed in his head. You're right Kyuubi, she is a show-off. But you have to love her style. Naruto said with a huge smile then turned and ran for Shikaku at lightning speed. She saw them, then in 2 leaps were on her head next to the half-buried Gaara. You started without me Kyuubi-sama. Shikaku said in an obviously playful voice, still advancing on the invaders. She suddenly stopped and looked up as dark clouds were forming directly above her. Oh no, not that. Shikaku said, slightly panicked. What's wrong Shikaku? Naruto asked. Some of them might be powerful water users, they're going to make it rain. Shikaku said slightly more panicked. So, that won't hurt you. Naruto said. You don't understand. If I get wet I lose my sand, it become useless. Water can even kill me. Shikaku said, now scared, water was the only thing she really feared more than anything. It rendered to sand useless, and she couldn't swim to save her life, literally. As a fire element I'm not too fond of water either, but I can deal with it. I can't cover everyone, we need Shikaku to complete our defense, without her we can't stop them all from reaching Konoha, and if my estimate is right, they still at least 800 shinobi left. I hate to put you in this situation Naruto, but you have to do it, if we lose Shikaku to rain, they could get by us and kill Gaara. Believe it or not, I'm actually not looking forward to doing this, but that jutsu is our only option. The rain will start pouring down within 2 minutes and there's no way Shikaku will reach them in time, and we don't know where they are in the army. Kyuubi said to Naruto in his head. Shikaku, I need you to leave, return to Gaara. Naruto said Shikaku Deegan quickly dispersing into the ground, looking like she was sinking, and within a minute Gaara was standing next to Naruto. Go back to Konoha and protect our precious people. I expect to see everyone I care about alive and well and standing around my hospital bed when I wake up tomorrow. Naruto said seriously. Gaara nodded, rose up on a small wave of sand and rode it back to Konoha at high speed. They better appreciate what I'm doing for them. Naruto said, then returned to normal, called up his full chakra, bit his thumb and began flashing through the long series of hand signs. Konoha, Academy Front Grounds, Cherry Splitter. Sakura yelled as she hit her special attack. A moment later the man she just hit screamed as his testicles literally exploded, despite his stone armor jutsu, which shattered a moment later as his concentration was broken. A moment later a kunai buried itself in his forehead killing him. Thanks for the distraction Sakura-kun, damn rock Nin are a pain in my butt. Tenten said, suddenly dodged a kick, spun and drove a kunai to the hilt in the unknown Nin's crotch. Then everyone was frozen when they felt it, a surge of chakra so powerful they knew they'd be dead if they were closer. Kyuubi. Izara said, she'd felt that power before, literally up close and personal, so she was able to shake off the fear effect it had on everyone first, saw the opening she's been waiting for and with a quick burst of blinding speed dismembered Mizuki. He was dead before he even realized what happened. She watched him fall apart. That was my good friend Naruto unleashing his full power, so unless you assholes want to stay and face him I suggest you surrender immediately. And if any of his friends are hurt, may Kami have mercy on your soul, because Naruto won't. Izara said the last line coldly as she wiped her blade off. Naruto-kun is coming. Hinata, Tenten, Sakura, Ino and Temari squealed happily, Seka smiled, Shikamaru and Kankuro smirked. I'd listen to her if I were you. We're Naruto's best friends and even we have trouble controlling him when he's like that. Shikamaru said calmly, though it was only half true, he'd never felt anything like that before, but knew it had to be Kyuubi. Sand coffin. Gaara yelled. All the remaining enemy Nin were suddenly encased in rock-hard sand from the neck down. They all turned to Gaara as he rode in on a 13-foot sand wave, stopped near them, his open right hand pointed at the captured Nin. He raised his left at Izara and Seka, now standing together, his face emotionless. Who are you? Gaara asked in his dead voice. Hinata immediately dashed in front of them, arms wide. They're friends Gaara, don't hurt them, they saved us. Hinata said. The diplomats were cowering together terrified. Gaara lowered his hand. Then they are my friends as well. Is anyone hurt and shall I kill these men? Gaara asked as he looked at the trapped men, his open hand twitching in anticipation of crushing them. They'd tried to take his new friends from him, and no one took anything from him. She hadn't known him long, but Hinata definitely got the impression that Gaara didn't play around. He made a Daion and that was that. You're called Hinata, you're in charge here since I'm a civilian. Izara said calmly, but kept an eye on that Gaara kid that just showed up. She knew the look of a stone-cold killer, and he had it in his eyes. Hinata glanced around and saw everyone looking at her. She thought a moment and set her jaw. Izara, seal Mizuki's head in a scroll for later. Ino, Sakura, Shikamaru, take the diplomates, Temari and Kankuro into the shelter and guard them, keep everyone calm. 10-10, we're going back to the stadium to help as much as we can. Izara and Seka stand guard out here. Gaara, when we're clear. Kill them, then join us back at the stadium. Hinata said seriously, but with a little sadness in her voice at the end. Gaara waited until everyone was clear, even the big woman and girl Hinata had called Izara and Seka. He looked at the trapped Nin with his old dead expression, and with a hint of sadistic glee closed his hand. Sand burial. he said as his hand closed. The men exploded in a huge shower of blood that his sand caught all of and absorbed before retuning to the gourd on his back. Their blood makes her happy, Gaara said as he turned to them. Her? Izara asked, eyebrows slightly raised. Shikaku. Gaara said, saw the recognition in Izara's eyes. His sand pulled their remaining bones and other bits deep under the ground so it looked like nothing happened, then his sand lifted him, turned and took him away. Naruto-kun has the most interesting friends. Izara said with a smile. Battlefield, half a mile from Konoha. Naruto screamed in agony as he finished his physical transformation into a 50-foot Kyuubi. Die mortal scum. Kyuubi roared and unleashed a massive stream of flame from his mouth that incinerated everything it touched. He leapt near the reanimating army to his right and unleashed another massive flame stream as his head turned FRPM right to left, leaving a giant crescent of scorched earth and ash. Looking up, he spat a huge fireball straight up at the clouds. A few moments later it exploded and dispersed the dark clouds. You think rain can stop the Lord of Hell? Die, insolent worms! Kyuubi roared, whipped his 9 tails around and slaughtered the remaining enemies around him, turned toward the other group advancing on Konoha as fast as they could, a group of about 400. Kyuubi set his stance and opened his mouth wide, fanning his tails out. A fireball appeared at the end or each as a huge ball of red chakra formed in front of his mouth and quickly grew to about 20 feet. Forgive me for the damage I'm about to do, Kyuubi thought. Chakra Cannon. Kyuubi roared and unleashed one of his most powerful attacks. The blast or red chakra hit the center of the remaining Nin and exploded in a giant flash of light and mushroom cloud. When the smoke and dust cleared a minute later, they were all gone. Where they'd been was a smoking hole almost a half-mile across and deep. The ground and everything in it was just gone. Konoha, outdoor stadium like everyone else. Tsunade was frozen in shock at what she'd just seen, heard and felt. She'd never experienced anything of that magnitude before. Snapping out if it only one thought entered her mind. Naruto. She ordered the ANBU to kill any remaining enemies that won't surrender, to lock up any that do. ABD have her elite jounin meet her outside Konoha where the blast was. 5 minutes later Tsunade was standing at the edge of the massive crater, her jaw hanging open. To her right was Shizune, Jiraiya, his clothes still splattered with blood, then Anko, Kurenai, Kakashi, Might Guy, Hayashi, Hizashi. Chuza, Inoichi, Shikaku and Tsum, all in the same state, total shock. Wait. Where's Naruto-kun? Only Kyuubi could have done this. So where is he? Tsunade said, noticeably worried. Kakashi suddenly cut his thumb, flashed through the hand signs and then touched the ground. Summon. He said. A moment later his entire pack appeared. Find Naruto at once, he could be hurt. Kakashi commanded. The Nin dogs all began sniffing the air as everyone watched them, then Pakken jumped up onto the head of the huge black bulldog, sniffed a few times. I think I found him, follow M. Pakken said, leapt down and took off around the crater at top speed, everyone following close behind. A few minutes later they stopped behind her. Dear Kami no. Tsunade screamed and thundered to Naruto's side, her sandals leaving imprints in the hard ground. She was already flashing through hand signs for her most powerful diagnostic jutsu as her knees hit the ground. Before her Naruto was face down in the dirt and totally nude. A brown jacket was thrown over Naruto's lower body as she extended her glowing hands, her face filled with fear. Hot fucking damn. Tsunade screamed at the top of her lungs a few moments later, a giant smile on her face. He's alive, but his chakra is exhausted and his entire body is strained in a way I've never seen before, but he's gonna make it. You are the luckiest little shit I've ever met in my life, Naruto. Anyone else would be dead if they were in your condition. August 22nd, 9:03 a.m., hospital, room 214. At least go to the cafeteria and get something Hinataken. I'll sit here until you get back. You've been sitting here all night. Hana Hyuga said. Sorry cousin, but I'm not leaving until my Naruto-kun is awake. Hinata said firmly, but tiredly, slumped in the chair, then her head turned to she smiled. Is Naruto-kun awake yet? Just in case I brought everyone some. I am said. I smell Ichiraku ramen. Naruto interrupted loudly. Everyone turned toward the bed and smiled. Naruto was sitting up, almost drooling as he stared at the boxes of ramen in Iam's hands. I think we found the cure for everything. Ichiraku ramen, I think you'd come back from the dead for some. Tsunade said with a laugh. Naruto-kun. Hinata squealed as she ran and dove on top of Naruto, hugging him tightly, and whether intentional or not, his face was squashed between her breasts as she hugged his head, his arms waving wildly. Hana just giggled quietly. Aren't you going to break them up? Tsunade asked casually. In a minute. Okay Hinata-kun, that's enough, let him go. Hana said. Hinata looked, realized she was smothering Naruto in her chest, and released him, embarrassed she'd done that in front of everyone. I'm sorry Naruto-kun. Hinata said softly and slipped off the bed. Naruto looked around and smiled, and who was there? Hinata, and her mother Hana, Tenten, Im, Tsunade, Shizune and standing in the corner silent, almost invisible, Gaara. Morning, where's everyone else? Was anyone hurt and did we win? Looks like I'm just in time for once, and I brought company. Kakashi said as he walked in, followed by Sasuke, Temari, Kankuro, Enko, Kurenai and her team of Shikamaru, Sakura and Ino. I'm not cleaning up the mess you made yesterday Baka, you're lucky you didn't kill us all. Sasuke said with a smirk. Naruto looked at Sasuke confused. What mess? I destroyed some trees and Gaara dropped enough sand on them to make a beach, but nothing we can't fix. Shikamaru sighed. Look out the window at the main gate. Go ahead Naruto, but watch the hospital gown, we don't need to see your underwear. Tsunade said and smirked. You have a cute little butt though. Tsunade said and smiled as Hinata and the other girls blushed. What? Naruto said, slightly embarrassed. I'll tell you later when the girls aren't around, now go look. Tsunade said. Naruto gave her a little glare, slipped out the other side of the bed and looked out the window toward the front gate. It took him a few moments to focus his eyes, when he did he gasped in shock and spun around. Is that a crater, high, about a half a mile wide and deep I figure, part of the road and a big section of forest are gone. I hope you and your friend can fix it. Tsunade said. I can. Gaara said emotionlessly. I'll fill it with the sand Shikaku crushed them with. Thank you Gaara. Back in bed Naruto, I have to check you over before you can leave. Tsunade said, only slightly surprised. Gaara nodded slightly. Naruto pouted, then got back in bed. I hate hospitals. There's nothing to do and the food is bad. Temari walked up to Naruto. Don't be so fussy Naruto-kun, you'll be out soon. Maybe this will cheer you up. Temari said then lifted her shirt and flashed her big bare breasts at Naruto. Naruto immediately smiled. Hinata giggled hard and covered her mouth with her hands, then harder when Tenten stepped next to her and did the same thing. Oh what the hell, ladies do it. Tsunade said as she motioned with her hands to make a semicircle around Naruto, heard them all sigh or giggle a moment, they formed a line around Naruto's bed, backs to the men, then she lead them in a group tit flash. Every guy in the room was stunned despite not being able to actually see them. This is the moment Jiraiya chose to appear in the window for a surprise visit, just in time to see a wall of bare breasts, including Tsunade's. His eyes got big as saucers, his jaw dropped, he got a bad nosebleed from both nostrils, paled and fell out of the window, a moment later hit the ground with a crash. Tsunade closed her shirt and tied the gray belt. Ran to the window, looked at the ground below, and started laughing her ass off. 11:42 a.m., Room 215, you broke your left arm, fractured 6 ribs, badly twisted your left knee, and wrenched your neck, you'll be in a hospital bed for the next week in casts, which means none of your research, and you're glad it happened? Unfucking believable. And Jiraiya, if you don't stop staring at my chest with that perverted grin, I'll assign you daily enemas. Tsunade said sternly, almost angrily. Boobies. Jiraiya said happily. That does it, daily enemas by a male nurse, and I'm cutting off your pain medication. Tsunade said angrily, turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. It's worth it. Jiraiya said happily as he was planning a new series in his head called Kunoichi Gone Wild.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to like, share and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. This is Raven Sage, signing off.